Greetings, I'm LaShondra Little, and I serve as the Vice President of the South Metro Democratic Women's Council. The purpose of our organization is to create awareness and facilitate support for various social issues and programs that are concerned to women in the South Metro and surrounding areas. The South Metro Democratic Women's Council is extending an invitation to all eligible candidates to be interviewed from each city within the South Metro region for the upcoming municipal elections. We're calling this series Candidate Conversations. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing you to candidate Chantaye McLaughlin, who is running for city council in the city of East Point. So to get us started, Chantaye, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so my name is Chantaye McLaughlin. I'm 42 years old, of age, I'd prefer to say instead of old. I am actually a small business owner. My business is C. Louise, where I impact marginalized communities through the work of mental health, prison reform, and human services as a communications consultant. I'm also an advocate. My advocacy work comes from me having lived experience with mental health and being wrongfully incarcerated and facing 20 years in prison. And during that time, I delivered triplets while incarcerated. And they said that I only had one child, and that was the Fulton County Women's Detention Center, which is out in Union City, which is a part of a class action lawsuit through the Southern Center for Human Rights and Georgia Advocacy Office for over 200 cases of cruel and inhumane treatment to minority women with mental health. And I'm also a founder of the Atlanta branch of WILF, which is the Women's International League of Peace and Freedom. Inside of that organization, it's been around since 1915, predominantly white. We've launched, myself and two other minority women, we've launched the Black Liberation Caucus, where we're holding them to account to have at least 2 members of brown or Black people or women in each chapter. Because what people don't know is this organization is also on a national level. When you run for a national seat, they're accountable to the United Nations around race and race relations. So how can they be accountable for race and race relations if they don't have anyone that represents us? I have, in addition to the triplets, who would be 4, I do have one of them. And I also have a 16-year-old who attends Tri-Cities High School. My 4-year-old is at APEC on Cascade. I've worked in the community for about 20 plus years as an advocate, advocating around the rights of the elderly, helping people to get jobs, doing neighborhood and community cleanups, planting trees, organizing book fairs. And in my previous life, I'm a music industry executive working for several hip hop stations. I'm a hip hop fan. And I also have a show on WIGO AM every Tuesday morning with my co-host Jennifer Sabin, she's Jewish. She's the youngest woman to have a seat on the American Stock Exchange, and it's called Money Mamas, where we share smart and savvy money conversations as entrepreneurs and single parents. So that's me. That's the bad PR, and that's the good PR, but that's me. I'm very transparent.
And that was a lot of great information. So you're doing a lot of great work in the community. So which leads to our next question, and maybe this will be a part of the answer. Why are you seeking to run for this particular position?
Well, I'm seeking to run for this particular position because oftentimes, so I've worked on a lot of campaigns. I've worked on a lot of campaigns behind the scenes. I've done grassroots with a lot of candidates. And what's there is oftentimes people make promises while they're running, but as soon as they're elected, they forget all of the promises. And it's like, as a public servant, you're for the people, but a lot of times, most of these elected officials aren't being for the people. And I'm tired of it. I'm tired of putting people in place who are just there. And so I'm running for office.
Okay. So tell us about, we see why you're running for office. So tell us what your platform is and what you're looking to do when you become in office.
So some of the things that I want to do, or that I definitely want to implement, is trauma-informed care certification, mental health first aid, as well as suicide prevention to all first responders, to include CNAs and RNs, along with the police and the fire department. I believe that this will help to save lives. One, from them getting the care themselves, and for the second, for them being able to implement it. And I have a way where it won't impact taxpayer dollars because of partnerships and collaborations with various organizations who provide these services at little to no cost. Like, for instance, you can get mental health first aid training for 30 people for $2,500 through the Georgia Mental Health Consumer Network. And there's about 10 agencies that do suicide prevention for free. So partnering with these agencies will help to impact people being killed. It will also help to impact the mental trauma on our police officers, our firemen, and our first responders. So that's one thing. Another thing is when it comes to these water boys, like I hate, and hate is a strong word, watching these young kids stand on the side of the street selling water and Gatorade and jumping out in front of cars, risking their lives and risking the livelihood of some of the drivers, because it's a fear on both sides. And I have past experience working as executive director of marketing for Black business professionals and entrepreneurs, in which we created summer programs for the youth and taught them how to become entrepreneurs. So there is a resource center that was just built on Washington Road, and I would like to be able to implement a lot of these programs from the resource center. And then with COVID, one thing that our elderly should have learned, because all elderly aren't retired, although we'd like to think that they are, but it's like they were left out because of the Zoom epidemic. I'm not going to call it an era, it's been an epidemic, because if you, either you know how to utilize it or you don't. Mm-hmm. And so being able to train and develop a lot of our elderly, being visible in the community. While I lived in Fulton County, well, I'm in Fulton County, but while I lived in Atlanta, I did a lot of work with Keep Atlanta Beautiful, doing neighborhood cleanups. So do neighborhood cleanups with Keep East Point Beautiful as well.
Okay. So what makes you qualified for this role?
Well, I think I listed a lot of qualifications just then. And I have the heart of the people. I've been there. I've been on both sides of the fence. I've been totally clueless, being a righteous do-gooder, for better choice of words, thinking that this is what the people need. And then I've been sitting there facing 20 years in prison for charges that weren't mine and really getting what the people need.
Okay. That makes sense. That makes sense. So we have been, you touched on this a little bit, we've been in this COVID-19 pandemic for now going on 2 years. So if elected, are there any specific priorities or legislation that you would support as it pertains to COVID-19?
So one, there's a couple of things. One, a lot of people don't realize that with East Point Power is run by the city, and there wasn't a moratorium on it. So when you have the elderly, when you have fixed income, like I was on fixed income at one point, and how do you, like, there is no extension. They give you an 8-day grace period to pay your bill. Mm-hmm. So with COVID and people coming off of COVID, as far as just returning back to work, there should be more structures put in place to give people a break around these electricity bills. My electric bill, I live in a almost 1,400 square foot apartment, and my electricity bill averages $200 a month. And what if I didn't have it in 8 days? I'm going to sit lightly, in the dark with my 2 children. That's not happening, but that's not a reality for some people. Some people sit in the dark with their children or as elderly because they don't have $200 in 8 days to pay a bill. Mm-hmm. And then with this moratorium, like, I love the entertainment industry. That is my heart. That is my passion. It makes my heart beat in a special way, mm-hmm. especially when I was at church instead of hearing Kilo Ali and Goody Bob and all of them. But I believe that money spent entertaining, especially in the middle of COVID, could have been better spent to put in place for this moratorium that's been lifted, where a lot of people are going to be left evicted. And in addition to them being left evicted, you're going to have a lot of people who are priced out. So whereas East Point has this small city charm, we're losing the small city charm because of gentrification. And now, because we haven't put the resources back into the community, we're left with properties that were, going for $1,100 a month. They're now going for $1,800 a month. So how can the average working class individual now afford East Point, which was known for being its own small city right outside of Atlanta?
That makes sense. So I guess the other piece, along with COVID, with the eviction moratorium being lifted and people sort of being left out, the other concerns that we've been hearing from a lot of people in this South Metro region is the fact that we're becoming boxed in with warehouses. What is your take on the warehouses that are popping up on this side of town?
So with some of them, I'm not going to say there's no choice, but due to the redistricting, like some of the warehouses are owned by East Point, some are owned by College Park, and some are owned by Hateville. Mm-hmm. And they're all inclusive. So there's going to have to be more of, I believe, a series of roundtable discussions to take place within all of the higher powers that be within all three cities and municipalities to determine a solution, because one city can't solve it. And I say that because just how the lines have been drawn. And so for East Point, I believe that the solution is to create more live work spaces. Mm-hmm. That's a way of impacting the fact that a lot of people are going to be priced out. And that also impacts bringing in a lot of small businesses. I think that with the West End going through gentrification, it would be great to see a lot of those businesses come to East Point, so that we can have our own culture and flavor and maintain that small city charm and keep, I love all people and I really love being a Black woman and I like our culture. So being able to maintain the culture. And so I think that if we could take the warehouse district and have it as like a cultural district, for better choice of words, so that it can hold value instead of being warehouses and empty space, because there's more empty space than it being utilized for anything.
Okay. So what could constituents expect from you that they're not currently receiving?
Well, one, I don't think that, so one, let me say this. The incumbent is Karen Renee, and I've never met her. And I've been active in politics for years. And I do know people who know her. However, I've never met her. And the only reason why I know what she looks like is because there's a few yard signs with her picture on it. So I'm never going to compete with another person, especially another woman. It goes against how I feel about women and women's rights. And I plan to bring more visible leadership. So it's like, how do you, like, people don't even, like, the average person doesn't even know what a city councilman does or who they are or anything like that. But if you've been in term for 2 years, the constituents should know who you are. And so I look to bring visible leadership. I look to bring an open door policy. I look to bring solutions. I've been doing this work for a long time as far as advocating and advocacy. And anyone who knows me knows I'm very solution oriented. I can't help everybody, but I can help some people. And it's not just about who I'm clicked up with. And I say that in the nicest way possible, but like the proof is before qualification day, a lot of endorsements were going out and we hadn't even qualified yet. So everyone's worrying about who's going to get reelected this year and next year, and no one's holding true to whatever the platform is and being for the people. So if I'm elected, what people can count on is me being for the people, for impacting public policy. $11,000 as a salary isn't going to make that big of a difference in my household. Mm-hmm. And it's about being for the people.
Okay. And so for people who want to know a little bit more information about you or would like to maybe even get involved with your campaign, how can they contact you?
They can go on my website to www.chantaye, that's CHANTAYEM.com, or they can even call my cell phone. I don't always answer. Text messages work well, and that's 404-709-5148.
Okay. And is there anything else before we wrap up that you would just like for the constituents to know about you and why you're the best candidate for this particular position?
So I would like to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my platform, to share about who I am and what I'm committed to. And as far as the best, the worst, you know, I promise you, I don't like to compete. And that may sound real weird, like I'm running for office and it's like, that may not be the best time to be modest or anything like that. But it's like, we have enough of that. Like if COVID didn't teach us anything, it should have taught us about unity, because right now we have to find a way to get into solutions. And if there's a candidate that's running that can get into a solution, or if we can partner together, I've heard rumors that some of my platform are being implemented, so be it. You know, come November 2nd, that's what it's about. It's about bringing about change and transformation. So if we can do that now, good stuff. So that's what it's about.
Okay. Well, thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to interview with the South Metro Democratic Women's Council. We are hoping that these interviews are vital for the people in the community and really give them a chance to know you a little bit more on a personal level and know more about you and your platform. So we wish you nothing but best of luck for your future campaign.
Thank you.
You're welcome.